Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 330 of volume 3 of Rabbi Avigdor Miller's new translation and commentary of the Mesillat Yesharim, The Path of the Just. And we are up to chapter 20 entitled How to Weigh the Subject of Hasadut, which follows on the back of chapter 19, which was entitled The Divisions of Hasadut. What is Hasadut? It is piety, and that is the concept of going above and beyond. Those of you who have a Christian background will be very familiar with this concept because it's very similar to the whole idea of going the extra mile. And there's going to be plenty of very thought-provoking and crucial, critical information that you are going to find out about in this video. And it's going to cause you perhaps to think about things in a slightly different light and to maybe go about your Avodat Hashem, your service of Hashem, in a slightly different way. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. We're up to part 10 of chapter 20, and it is entitled, When It's a Mitzvah Not to Do a Mitzvah. Okay, when it's a mitzvah not to do a mitzvah. All right, let's find out. The Mesillat Yesharim says, so you see that you should not judge an act of hasadut by how it appears at first alone. Rather you have to turn to all sides that a person's intellect is capable of seeing what could happen as a result of this hasadut, until you can finally make a true judgment of what would be better to do, either to do it or not to do it. So you might see a situation where you have an opportunity to do something that is going above and beyond, and if you don't think about it enough in terms of what are the repercussions of this going to be, even though it's coming from a good place, and it's certainly a good thing for me to do it, it could inadvertently cause somebody to feel intimidated, could cause somebody to feel jealous, and therefore, help somebody go deeper in terms of their negative view towards you or somebody else. And so you have to really kind of have an ability to apply wisdom, apply chokhmah, and read the room. You have to be somebody that's good at reading the room. A very, very important trait to have. Somebody who's sort of not able to kind of get the vibe of where everybody's at. If you're in a social situation, it can be quite a debilitating thing to have in social situations. And it's in social situations where we find ourselves when we are trying to be part of bringing in the kingdom. We're not sort of all privileged with being able to just sort of stay behind closed doors and study Torah all day. Most of us, if you're a normal person, you have to get out and about. And it's important that, when we get out and about, we can be good examples to show the people, the way human beings should be acting and treating one another. Rabbi Avigdor Miller says, we're learning that hasadut is not a simple matter at all. You can't just follow your inclination when you think a pious thought of a kosher from idea of hasadut and go ahead and do it. You have to weigh it on a scale of intellect and Torah learning and consider the future. Then after you know all the sides, you can make a decision. And the Mesillat Yesharim says, for example, there is a mitzvah of the Torah, you should rebuke your fellow man. And that comes to us from Leviticus 19:17. And Rabbi Avigdor Miller says, when you see that he does something wrong, you must tell him, rebuke him, and criticize him and set him straight. But the Mesillat Yesharim says, many times a person will try to rebuke sinners in a place or at a time when his words will not be heard. And he causes him to break forth more in their wickedness, or causes them to break forth more in their wickedness, and to make a Kilul Hashem, a desecration of the name of Hashem, and to add more sins. Therefore, even a mitzvah of hokiyak, tokiyak, which is a concept, means to rebuke your fellow man, has to be applied with judgment of wisdom and deep insight to foresee the results. So, you've got to apply common sense. I guess that's what I'm trying to say essentially. When you are going to do a mitzvah, you see an opportunity to do a mitzvah, you have to apply common sense. If you see that there are a bunch of young youths, it's late at night, and they're carrying on and making a scene, and you want to get in amongst them and tell them, guys, pull your heads in, be nice, be nice boys. You all have mothers that love you. Well, I'm assuming they do. Hopefully they do. And you do the right thing and take them to an alley so not to embarrass them and give them a hefty rebuke. You might find that they, are thanking you after you willingly walked into an alley so that they can mug you and beat you up. So you've got to, thankfully a lot of people have enough common sense not to do that. But that's just a very basic example. You've got to weigh up whether, somebody is going to listen to you or not. In such cases, the real hasudut is to keep quiet. As our sages of blessed memory said, according to Tractate Yevamot 65b, just like it is a mitzvah to say something that will be heard, that will be listened to, it is the same mitzvah not to say something that will not be listened to. Now, I love that wisdom. That is just crazy. So did you hear what it says there? So just as it's it's something good, or it's a command to actually physically go out and do something, there is on occasion situations that arise that by refraining from doing this particular thing, which you think is a good thing, is actually a mitzvah not to do. Wow. Isn't that interesting? The word kach means that it's the same. Just like it's a mitzvah a mitzvah de'oraita, it's an expression that means a law from the Torah. To tell a person when he's wrong, it's also de'oraita, not to tell him if he won't listen. So this is interesting because we see Yeshua rebuking the Pirushim. So straight away, because Yochanan HaMatbil, John the Immerser, and Yeshua so vehemently rebuking their peers, is straight away a giveaway that these men that they're rebuking are worthy to be rebuked. Because they're, by the mere fact that, listen, if somebody ever rebukes you, if you ever find yourself on the receiving end of a harsh rebuke by somebody who's very obedient, very observant Torah person, take heart in this one fact alone, that the mere fact that they're rebuking you means that they think that you're going to listen to them and you're going to take it on board what they're saying. They're not rebuking you to make you have a bad day and make you, upset and ruin your day and ruin your confidence. They're rebuking you because they're disappointed, but it's more than just disappointment. They look at you as somebody that's someone, and they perhaps even look up to you, and they see that you're doing something that they know is beneath your level. And so it really brings their world crashing down around them. And so when you see the fierceness of Yeshua's rebuke and the he goes into he uses such detail, describing them as making their students more eligible for Gehenna than they are. That's pretty graphic. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for the word graphic. His rebukes are pretty graphic, and so the more fury laid in a rebuke, the more that the one doing the rebuking it's a giveaway that person actually has a lot of love and respect for that occupant that they're firing the rebuke at. That's a true rebuke. If somebody's quite obviously your enemy and he's an enemy of Hashem, you don't want to rebuke him. He needs to be destroyed. He's an enemy of Hashem. He's an enemy of the truth. He's the enemy of Emet. And so you don't see David HaMelech go out and ask Goliath if you'd like to sit down and just talk about things over a coffee. No, he's going out there as the equivalent of a modern day sniper, in those days a slingman, and he's putting a stone through his skull, and then he's severing his head and holding his head aloft to the enemy. And so when somebody's, on the other hand, when somebody's rebuking, this is a inter-family dispute. This is a dispute among siblings. And so it's a very intimate thing, and rebukes are just a fact. They're going to come. You're going to give them, you're going to receive them, and if you receive them, let them hit you the right way. You don't want to let a rebuke cause you to even become more of a rusher than you already might be. And even if you do take a rebuke the wrong way, who knows, in a few days' time you may have calmed down enough to realize that what that person said was right. So, it doesn't have to be instant. You don't have to instantly accept a rebuke. But be sure to contact the person and apologize for the way that you handled their rebuke, because you might have in turn said a few upsetting things to them. And just tell them, you know what, I've had a few days to think about it. I've calmed down. I think you're right. So it's a very, very interesting subject, this whole concept of rebuke. Because when you see that, you go, oh, well, okay, so you sure really love the Pirushim. Yes, that's why he says everything that they teach, do. And that's why he says, unless your righteousness doesn't exceed that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you'll have no place in the kingdom. So what righteousness is he talking about? I thought the Pharisees were bad guys. But he's telling his own people, unless your righteousness exceeds theirs, you won't have a chance in the kingdom. So he's using them as a benchmark for holiness. And later on, when he's speaking to the Samaritan at the well, he's saying salvation is of the Jews. Oh, what's that all about? Extremely interesting. Extremely interesting. So remember, a rebuke is an act of love. It's an act of intense love. If you listen, I'll tell you what, if you feel indifferent about somebody, you truly, have the opposite feeling in you of love. It's not hate, because hate's still a sign that there is some sort of passion that you have for the person. It's just gone to the other end of the spectrum. It's when you have indifference. So when you feel completely indifferent to whether the person lives or dies or stays or goes, you couldn't care. Okay, that's the opposite of love. That's a relationship that's not going to easily be repaired. Okay, so part 11, when mitzvot lead to quarreling. So, I can do a mitzvah and it can lead to fighting? Yes. A lot of people have ongoing fights with family members who don't see the Bible like them and don't understand the concept of the Torah and all these things that are somebody who is a newcomer to the Torah is astounded by. When his friends and colleagues and family don't get it, there's many discussions and he's speaking with such enthusiasm and they're just not getting it. And, and then Easter rolls around and then Christmas rolls around and it's like, turns into WWE. It turns into a wrestling match. So when mitzvot lead to quarreling. The Mesillat Yesharim says, it is obviously proper for every person to hurry and run to do a mitzvah and to exert himself to be among those who are busy with the mitzvah. However, sometimes a quarrel can result from that zirazut. So we looked at zirazut, that was alacrity and zeal and applying energy to your avodah, to your service. Because the mitzvah can be profound and a kilul Hashem made, more than a mitzvah will be honored by his running to do it. I'm going to read that again because I stopped and did an explanation and I didn't even understand what the sentence said. However, sometimes a quarrel can result from that zirazut because the mitzvah can be profound and a kilul Hashem made, more than the mitzvah will be honored by his running to do it. So in other words, it's saying that your eagerness to do a mitzvah can cause more of a desecration than it can an elevation of the name of Hashem. And rather than having peace prevail in a situation, you've chosen for the situation to be have come upon it an era of unrest and quarrel and war. And it was a peacetime situation, and no harm was being done. You weren't being put on your back foot or against the ropes. You've just come out in an unprovoked way and now caused a huge tension in the room. You didn't need to do that. Nobody was calling you out. Nobody was picking on you and confronting you about what you believe. They were just getting on with it and talking about normal things or everyday things. But you're now going out of your way, and this is what people do all the time on social media. They put up a provocative statement, and sometimes even I even find myself starting to type something, and then I go, "Why am I typing this? It's only going to cause a provocation." You know what I mean? So I warn you. I'm warning you. As much as I'm warning myself. Don't post provocative things on social media to do with your faith. You get up there and you somebody says, describe the Pharisees in one sentence. You're inviting people to speak badly about Jews. You just are. You don't think there's anything wrong with that. Describe the Pharisees in one sentence. And then all of a sudden you get these people saying, that they were evil. Okay, they're evil. Right, wow. Maybe they're just gone off the track, huh? Maybe a little like us at times, huh? So you have to be very careful. You go, I'm going to put this, it's going to inform everybody. It's going to be I'm going to put up a post. It's going to let everybody know that, this is the way it should be, and it just causes, it's like a grenade. And it causes a whole mess of trouble for you. And then now you focus on that for the next month. If your account doesn't get banned, unless everybody blocks you or something, you just get engage in these debates, and then other things get dragged into it, and it just becomes a nightmare. So what are you saying, Jason? Are you saying that we can't proclaim our faith publicly? I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying don't get there and put up posts to do with your faith motivated to provoke somebody to anger or motivated to wind somebody up. If that's your motivation or resides as 1% of your motivation when you're putting a post up, your motivation's got to all be about a person's well-being and all about things working out for people. But if 1% of your desire of posting that post up and the Beit Din and Shemayim, they're going to know about that 1%. You just bring a whole mess of hell down on you. Even if you just, turn off notifications to the post and the furor continues, you're still going to have to answer to that because you were the seed of that whole argument, that whole quarrel. For instance, the Gemara relates in Tractate Yoma 23a that the young Kohanim used to race up the altar to do a mitzvah of Terumat HaDeshen. Each one wanted to be first. People who have as a result hurry to do mitzvot. It happened that when they were running up, one of them saw that another was going faster. He became so excited he took the knife that he carried for the Avigdor, for the service, and he put it into the heart of his competitor. So a group of very young Kohanim who were going to partake in a korban, the first one up there was privileged was the one privileged to do it, and it became such a competition that in the excitement, the one coming second took his knife and plunged it in the heart of the leader. And this is in the Beit HaMikdash. This is in the Holy Temple, doing sacred service. Now, what was the motive? He wanted to be the first to get there to perform the Terumat HaDeshen. But he took it a little too far, didn't he? And I'm sure he regretted it. I'm sure he wept over it. I'm sure he was distraught. I'm sure he was never the same again. But look how these things happen. He lost control of himself. In a case like that, it would have been better not to rouse angry feelings and to let somebody else go first. In similar cases, a husid must certainly look to let go of a mitzvah. Okay, in similar cases, a husid must certainly let go of a mitzvah and not to run after it. As the sages of blessed memory said regarding the case of the Levim, according to Tractate Bamidbar Rabbah 5.1, as the sages of blessed memory said regarding the case of Levim, because they knew that the reward was very great for those who carried the Aaron Habrit, the Ark of the Covenant, they forsook the mitzvah carrying the shulchan, the menorah, and the altars when they were traveling. They all ran to take the Aaron to receive the reward for carrying it. Because of that, there was a quarrel, and one said, I want to hold on to this part of the Aaron, and that one said, I want to hold on here, and it led to quarreling, and the Shekinah attacked them. So everybody wants to be the one that's carrying the big gun, don't they? So in this case, the Aaron Habrit. Sometimes we can lose sight. We can lose sight of. I don't know. I was going to say lose sight of the forest for the trees. It's a common expression. But yeah, we can get so wrapped up in what we're doing that we can lose track of, what's proper. It is a very big mitzvah, says Rabbi Avigdor Miller, for people to volunteer to do good things and to be the first to do a mitzvah. And still, when you see that something unfavorable can come out of it, you shouldn't do it. It's important to always look ahead and consider what could happen. Now, somebody's, maybe there's 10 people rushing to do a mitzvah, and there's somebody in the group that's never going to do the mitzvah. He's just not as fast as the other 9. And the other 9 are so righteous that they know that there's a person in the group that just doesn't have the physical ability to physically run to do this mitzvah and get the opportunity to ever do it first. So the entire group so the remaining 9 other Kohanim all make an agreement that they will put on a facade that they'll be running as hard as they can, and they're going to let this other kid do it. And so this other kid, and it's all a ruse, it's all, it's all fake. And they've all secretly pledged that they'll never ever tell this little kid the truth, that they let him do it. Because they care about this kid, they love this kid. And so they're gonna do this dash to do this mitzvah, and this 9th Kohen that just maybe he's a little bit overweight, maybe he's just not as fit as they are, and they just know that he's never going to get the opportunity. Or every one of the other 9 have all had a go at one time or another, and so they just agree. That's a mitzvah. That's a mitzvah. Letting the kid go and do the mitzvah that will never get a chance to do it. That's you could argue that's a bigger mitzvah than the mitzvah itself. You've seen those marathons where the runner is exhausted and another runner will forego his place in the whole race to assist the other runner to continue to be upright and be moving forward and aid him and keep him up. And that all of a sudden steals the show in terms of the entire audience is now focused on this runner who's voluntarily thrown in the towel, and now he's focused on getting this other runner who's exhausted, who can't finish. He's crawling, literally crawling, lifts him up and helps him and walks him over the line. But it takes him an hour later, and all the other competitors have long since gone home, had a shower, and are having dinner. And invariably, this draws the admiration of the spectators more than the person who's winning the race now. Part 12, walk secretly with Hashem. A man is obligated to fulfill the mitzvah with all the details without caring who is looking, and he should not be afraid of anybody, and he should not be embarrassed or ashamed. Rabbi Avigdor says, even if someone will disapprove, or they might ridicule him, he has to do a mitzvah anyway or anyhow. He shouldn't care what people think or say. This is what David Amelech said: when I met kings or of other countries, I will speak about the laws of Hashem and not be ashamed. Even though they are opposed to your Torah, we also learned you should be bold like a leopard who has chutzpah. When it comes to mitzvot, don't be afraid, says Rabbi Avigdor, and the Mesillat Yesharim continues. However, even in such things, he has to make distinctions and use discretion. Because of all this, he must never let go of a mitzvah just because of someone's ridicule. Was said regarding the mitzvah itself that we are completely obligated to do. Because of all this, that he must never let go of a mitzvah just because of someone's ridicule, was said regarding the mitzvah itself that we are completely obligated to do. In these things, he should make his face as strong as flint and not be embarrassed. But there are certain additions of hasadut that are not obligatory, that if he will do them in the presence of the multitude of plain ignorant people, they will laugh at him and ridicule him, and he is causing them to sin, and they will be punished because of the sin that he caused them to do. This is important. I remember this one. Right, so when you see a pious person in a public setting with a lot of low-level people, you will often notice that this pious individual won't be acting in a way that's pious in this group. He'll be acting the same way as everyone else to a certain degree. It was often cited by people who observed the Baba Sali when he attended a Seder, when he attended a gathering of lay people that maybe perhaps weren't religious, but they respected the Baba Sali. He wouldn't be doing acts of piety publicly in front of them. He would be just have an accessibility about him. It's a very important subject to contemplate and to think about, because you get a lot of people who get so involved in learning and their Yiddishkeit, and they get so caught up in it that when they're in a situation with people that obviously are nowhere near them in their level, they can come across looking a bit silly and perhaps a bit intimidating, because they're talking and acting in a certain way, and they're doing all sorts of things that these other people don't have a clue what these things are. And so a probably pious person will take that into account when he's with a bunch of other people, and in a way he'll posture himself to not upset or challenge these people that he's with. And this is what Shaul, the Apostle Paul, gets accused of a lot with his statement of, I'll be a Greek to a Greek and a Roman to a Roman. If you're going to be a Jew to a Greek or a Jew to a Roman, it's not going to work. But that doesn't mean that you're going to desecrate the Torah because of the company that you're in, which is what most people who are off their heads misappropriate that verse to mean. It simply means that you are acting in a way that conforms with the where the group is that you're at. You're not making yourself stand out like some sort of, grand sort of royal prince. You are putting yourself at the same level of the people that you are associating with. This is not saying that you're actually transgressing the Torah in any way. You're not, but you're coming at them at their level, so to speak. Rabbi Avigdor says this is a very important point we're hearing here. When something is not a matter of kiyuv, but it's a matter of additional frumkeit or hasadut that someone wants to do on his own, while it's certainly praiseworthy, in the case when it will cause ridicule or hostility, when it's a mitzvah, then it's a mitzvah not to do it. When someone does things lifnim meshirat hadin, that is beyond the letter of the law, that causes others to ridicule him, he is mekati et harabim. He is one that causes the multitude to sin. If something is a mitzvah or a din that he must do, he must make his face like a stone and not care about what others say. If they ridicule him, he shouldn't care. But there are certain things that are only additions which he can dispense with in time of need. And if they cannot be done in such a way to avoid ridicule or oppression, he should dispense with those things. This is a kiddush. This is a kiddush the Mesillat Yesharim is telling us. So we had this guy who fancied himself as being somebody with an Orthodox Jewish background, which he was a Jewish guy, and he gave the impression that he had an Orthodox background. Still does. I think I saw a bio of him not too long ago on the Oz Torah directory. And it came to the time in the service when he came to visit us to put on the talit. And so normally when somebody puts on a talit, they will swing the talit around and they'll do their little thing and put it on, say the bracha, and put it on. And, they might kiss the corners. But when this individual came along to the service, there is quite a few different ways that Hasidic Jews will put on a talit gadol. And he went through this whole process of swinging it around his head and everything. And it's just not a good look, Yes, you can argue that putting on a talit is not a commandment, it's a tradition. But the whole idea is that the traditional garb of wearing robes since fell out of vogue in terms of what was normal fashion, at least in the Western world. And so the custom to put on a talit gadol became part of the prayer service. But the way in which a person puts it on, there is a certain way that Hasidim do, where they swing it around the head and do all these things and over this shoulder and that shoulder. And it's just, and everybody else look and they all question. I could see the whole room questioning themselves, saying, "Oh, so we're not putting on our talit in the right way." And it was a sort of a statement to the room, like, "Look at me, I'm far superior to everybody else. Look how I'm putting on my talit gadol." When in actual fact, if you he's visiting a congregation that are nowhere near his level, and it's time to put on the talit. Listen, I'm just going to put it on the regular way, because it caused shockwaves. Everybody just freaked out. Like, oh, maybe we're putting our talits on the wrong way. And we weren't. It was just, it's just a traditional way of doing it. It adds a flair and it has additional meaning, brings additional meaning to the mitzvah, and it beautifies the mitzvah. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's just that, you're coming along to a venue of people that are just nowhere near. They only just started putting on a talit gadol a week ago. And now you're swinging it all around and looking like you're in a kung fu film. I just remember that. The Mesillat Yesharim says he could have stopped doing these things. He could have done them in private, or he could have refrained entirely from doing those things because they are not absolutely obligatory. It is certainly better for a husid to omit them rather than to do them. Rabbi Avigdor says, "I'm not going to give any examples because I'll get in trouble. If I'll say you can skip certain things in order to avoid ridicule, then there'll be people who ridicule and oppose me, so I'm keeping quiet. But it's a principle that you must be willing to conceal your hasadut and not publicly do things that are not absolutely necessary if they'll arouse resentment and opposition." Because you had people in that group that, they were in two minds about wearing the talit gadol. And when you see somebody doing these ninja moves, putting it on, you're going to further potentially alienate this group who are just managing to put on a talit gadol. And then when they see somebody dressing like, a husid, and then throwing the talit around before they put it on like they're in some sort of ninja film, these people, newcomers, are going to go, oh, what's that? Where's that in the Bible? And it's just, you just don't need to do it. Just, look how from I can do this trick when I'm putting on my talit. I was half expecting him to take off. I'll risk one example. Okay, so you are going to get an example from Rabbi Avigdor Miller. Here we go. However, some people like to sway or shake very much when they daven. So some people will daven because remember the Torah describes man as being like, the soul of a man is like a flickering flame. So when somebody prays, they, what's called in Hebrew, I think it's a Yiddish word, they daven. And so they bob, they do this bobbing up and down, backwards and forwards. Suppose a person has to daven in his place of business where he's employed and he stands up and he davens like that. Some people don't realize that's prayer, so they'll ridicule him. Therefore, he should avoid swaying like that, otherwise he'll bring the Jews to sin. Because by pointing and laughing at him davening like that, they're doing a very big sin, but it's because he caused it. So, a person on the street doesn't know, they know about the Jews, that they're religious, and that's it. And if they see a Jew in the corner of his office or the corner of some part of the place where he's working at, trying to, be out of the way and out of sight, and just sees the guy bobbing forward with no explanation of why he's doing that, he's going to be thinking this guy's a mental case. And then he sees a few other Jews do it, and he goes, oh, these guys must be mental. And so you have to just be conscious of that. What is your customs that you're taking on, or your Torah that you're taking on, and your customs that you're using to execute these observances, are they going to cause ridicule? Is it possible for you to go somewhere privately to do it? You just have to weigh every single situation as it presents itself. Therefore, you should avoid swaying like that, otherwise you'll bring the Jews to sin. So, okay, I'm at work, maybe I'll just hold the swaying. I can pray, they'll know I'm praying, but I'll hold the bobbing. I'll just hold back on that. It's like that guy, you should just, put the talit in. You don't have to swing it around your head and everything. Just hold back. But put yourself in everyone else's shoes for the day. You're here as a guest and you're about to come up and do a talk. Don't start off on the wrong foot. Going out of your way to separate yourself from the rest of the people in the community. A good leader will, I don't want to separate myself from you. I want to be part of you, and I want you to be a part of me, and I just want you guys to do better. And I want to help you do better. There are other examples. It's an important principle that Hasidut is not measured by the act itself, but by the results of that act, which I found is interesting. Because my understanding of the Torah was, it doesn't matter what you achieve in the Torah, it only matters your effort. It only matters the amount of effort that you put into apply. You get rewarded on your effort, not your results. But in this case, you're essentially being rewarded for results in the realms of Hasidut, which I find is very interesting because on a surface level it flies in the opposite direction of the whole concept of operating at your limit, and regardless of the results you'll still get a reward because you were putting in your effort, the maximum effort. I always told my kids, I said to them, I don't care how well you do or what you don't do at school, but I want to see on every report card that you tried your best. If I see that you tried your best, not looking at what A, B, C, or D, couldn't care less. But if the teacher said, trying, so-and-so is, I won't say my kids, they're trying the absolute best they can. That's okay. That's all they can ask for. They're trying their best. And if they're trying their best, that result is their best result. And so it's the same as an A, whatever it is. You just have to try your best. But in terms of Hasidut, it's not so cut and dry. What was I up to? Sometimes you have to conceal your piety. In general, if you're in a frum neighborhood and everybody advertises that he's a frum Jew publicly, then it's very great to compete with each other to show more and more piety. So if you're in a group of people that throw the talit around the head, okay, fine. But if you're in a different neighborhood, then you must keep in mind this principle that it's worth omitting certain things or hiding your piety in order not to arouse resentment. That's why you don't see these greats like Baba Sali, I read a book about him, and they don't, they're not trying to be the center of the gathering. They're not like, oh, I'm the life of the party. No, they're not like that. But everybody knows they're there. Everybody's mindful that they're there. The Mesillat Yesharim says, many great Hasidim omitted their customs of piety when they're among ordinary people, because it looked like arrogance. There you go. I'll say it again. Many Hasidim omitted their customs of piety when they were among ordinary people because it looked like arrogance. This is something else now. Even though people won't ridicule you, but it looks like you're showing off, even then you should try to hide your hasidut. To sum up, whatever is fundamental in a mitzvah, whether it's a din, a judgment of the Torah, or a din of the Gemara, or even if the Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law, the set table says he must do it, he should do it even in the presence of anyone who will ridicule him. But what is not fundamental, he will cause laughter and ridicule, he should not do it. So, okay, if it's something that's commanded in the Torah that you pray, you might be in a prison cell with a bunch of other people that are non-religious. It comes to time for prayer. Yes, you should get up and do whatever it is you normally do at time of prayer. But if it means that you might normally dove and sway back and forward, or you might talk loudly in your prayers, and you can just whisper under your breath and just stand in the corner and just have the head down and maybe tell one or two people in the cell, listen, I'm a religious person, I'm going to pray, I hope you don't mind going in the corner. 9 times out of 10, they'll respect that and they'll say, listen, can you put in a good word for me? And you go, yep, no worries. But if you go in the corner and you start, swaying backwards and forwards and singing and chanting and doing all these sorts of things, it's just going to be like, whoa. And the thing is, you're when you're praying in a situation like that, if you're in a prison cell with some people who are not religious there, you're conscious of the fact that they're watching you and they're looking at you because they've pegged you as being religious. And so they're going to be watching your every move now. And so it's very hard for you to concentrate that you're standing before the King of Kings when you've got these people in the background looking at you and you're aware that they're looking at you. And so you've got to completely divorce yourself from all that. And so you've got to go, well, I'm not going to give them anything to kind of be confused about. I'm just going to come at you, Hashem, this morning, or come before you, Hashem, not at you. I'm going to come before you. And I'm just going to give you, a straightforward me today. And I'm going to mention some of these people in this cell with me as well. It's common sense. A lot of this is common sense. I think we'll leave it there. That takes us to part 13, page 337. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found that interesting. I just thought it was a really interesting topic. This whole concept of being a Husid, and there are situations that arise that keep your Hasidut to yourself. No, don't do the mitzvah. Not a good time to do the mitzvah now. In fact, not doing the mitzvah is going to be a mitzvah for you. I don't really ever see that many Torah teachers teach on the actual concept of refraining from a mitzvah is actually achieving a mitzvah, depending on the situation. So you've got to look at each situation, look at it from all angles, and take into consideration all that particular situation's variables, and then do whatever it is you're going to do accordingly. Listen, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for watching right to the end of this video. A bit of a longer one than I normally do. I hope you have a great day and a great week. And until next time, Hashem willing, bye for now.